Welcome to Dock Chat, the podcast that brings you the stories of the unique community of people who work, live and play in the historic Dockyard, Chatham. In this episode, we provide a fascinating insight into how our current exciting exhibition, Brickwrecks, Sunken Ships in Lego Bricks, was created. I was really pleased to talk with Em Blamey, who is the creative producer for the Australian National Maritime Museum. I also spoke with Barnard, Deputy Chief Executive of Chatham Historic Dockyard, about this exhibition. In this part, Em tells us about her role and how the Brickwrecks exhibition was developed.
Thank you for having me on. It's great to get a chance to talk about my exhibition, Brickwrecks, Sunken Ships in Lego Bricks. And it's great that it's managed to travel to the UK, because that's where I grew up, and it's nice to see one of my creations make its way back there. So my role as creative producer was to basically develop the exhibition. I worked for the Maritime Museum in Sydney, the Australian National Maritime Museum, and create exhibitions on all sorts of different topics, anything from pirates to this one on shipwrecks, and currently I'm developing one about crocodiles. So it's a great job where I always get to learn new things and then try and think of cool ways to share them with visitors to the museum. When I get a new topic, I guess my first thing is to research that topic and learn all about it for myself. I actually think it's quite useful if it's a subject I'm not very familiar with, because then I figure I'll be starting at the same point that a lot of visitors are that come to the exhibition. So hopefully the things about it that grab me and that I find interesting are the sorts of things that other people will like to learn as well and discover. And so I try and think of ways to present them. So after I've sort of researched and found all the cool stories in the topic, I then sort of have to think about how they might sit together to form an exhibition. With Brickwrecks, it was fairly easy because they're in chronological order, starting with the oldest wreck, coming right through to the newest one. But for other topics, it's not as straightforward. And there doesn't always have to be a set structure, but it can help, certainly can help you decide what to include and what not to. And then you have to sort of work out how you're going to tell those stories. Are you going to find objects either from the museum's collection, or borrow them, or purchase them, or commission someone to create them? Or are you going to do it through audio visual, through footage or films or interviews with people? Or are you going to create interactive experiences, which might be something as simple as sort of lifting flaps or opening doors, or more complicated augmented reality? We have a fantastic exhibit in Brickwrecks where you can use tablets to get more information about the Lego model. It's about the Pandora, and the Pandora shipwreck, most of it is still there, but it's under the sand, so you can't see it. But through the magic of augmented reality, you can actually see what Pandora looked like. Another thing that's important is to make sure that you get a balance of different ways of telling the stories and different ways of interacting, because everyone's different. Everyone engages in different ways, learns in different ways, wants to discover things in different ways. So it's nice to have a variety, and that way there's something for everyone. And it also means that people going through the whole exhibition don't get tired or bored of always interacting in the same way. We also need to take into account who the exhibition is aimed at. Is it for little kids? Is it for adults? What our budget is, how big it is, and whether it's going to travel. So whether we have to design it to pack up and ship out, or if things can just be bolted down and never move again. So that's sort of the process of creating an exhibition with Brickwrecks specifically. So that Australian National Maritime Museum did it in partnership with Western Australian Museum. Basically, collaborations between museums work really well, because basically you each put in half the money, but you get the whole product. So you basically get a half price exhibition, and you divvy up the workload. And also for a travelling exhibition like this, you've got guaranteed venues in at least partner museums, so you know you're going to get a good amount of visitation. And Western Australian Museum is a long way away from Sydney, so we don't have to worry about poaching each other's audiences or visitors. So it works well from a business point of view. So yes, so actually they came to us and said, hey, we're thinking about doing a Lego shipwreck show. And we said, hey, that sounds amazing, count us in. And then we had to work out which shipwrecks we wanted to cover. because obviously there's no shortage of them. And this was then a negotiation. We all sort of put up our favorites, and then we sort of negotiated to work it out. The important thing as creative producer that I wanted to make sure is that we had a mixture in terms of the ages of the vessel. So as I said before, we've got right really early sort of Bronze Age right the way through to one that only wrecked a few years ago, and also different types of vessel. So we've got cargo vessels, we've got exploring vessels, we've got passenger vessels. Yeah, so that we could tell lots of different stories about the vessels. And another focus of the exhibition is the maritime archaeology and how the wrecks are researched and what we learn from them. And so I also wanted to have a range of sort of the eras in which they were discovered, because then we can talk about how maritime archaeology has changed over time as well. So that was another factor. Another thing we had to take into account is that Lego itself has some limitations, because they have a policy of not doing any military vessels or models basically that are later than the First World War, than 1914. So that's why you can't buy a Lego aircraft carrier or something like that. They don't make them. It's their policy. They don't want to glorify war. So that did limit us a bit, because one of the ones I was considering doing as the sort of most modern vessel was the Torrey Canyon that wrecked and had the huge oil slick, and then Air Force tried to burn up the oil by bombing the slick. And we thought, what an amazing model that would make if you've got the wreck and then you've got these jets streaming down, and it could be really cool. But yeah, we couldn't do that in the Lego, so that's why we found a different environmental disaster to cover. So yeah, so from all that sort of thinking, negotiating, researching, we came up with a list, and then we had to look at how many of them we could actually afford, because big Lego models don't come cheap. So there was a bit of whittling down as well as regards how many we could actually accommodate once we got some prices in. And then once we decided, okay, these are the stories we're going to tell, these are the vessels we're going to feature, then we had to work out what we actually wanted the Lego model to show. Were we going to show the wreck? Were we going to show what the ship looked like before it was wrecked? Were we going to show what the wreck looked like when it was recovered, as we do with the Vasa? So that, again, we wanted to get a mixture. And the other thing we wanted to get a combination of was the scale of the model created. Now, one of them is like 1-to-1 scale, actual size. Obviously, that's not the entire ship. That is actually the remotely operated vehicle that was used to discover the shipwreck. But we thought it would be really cool to do that actual life size, so you really get a sense of that piece of equipment. Right the way through to, if you're a Lego aficionado, to a microfig scale, which is even smaller than minifig. And I used that scale for the Terror and Erebus wrecks, because I wanted the ships to be really small in the big model of the ice field, to really give a sense of their isolation and desolation and the situation that they were in. So that's sort of how the Brickwrecks content was, or the wrecks were determined. So I was the creative producer doing the research, the story development, the writing, and Western Australia Museum did the design of the exhibition, the graphic design, and the initial 3D design, although it has changed a bit since the Australian version to make it more suitable for the international tour. And we then got input from the maritime archaeologists from both organisations and from overseas, if they were experts that worked on particular vessels that we were featuring, just to make sure that we were being accurate and get a clear idea of the stories to tell, and also look for good photographs or footage or interviews we might be able to include. And then when the exhibition was in Australia, we were able to include some real shipwreck artefacts from the wrecks, but there are all sorts of rules and regulations about shipping shipwreck artifacts overseas, and so these couldn't be included in the international tour. There are some replica items and sort of non-shipwreck objects that relate to the stories, but we couldn't include the actual real objects on the international tour. One of the coolest things to do in this exhibition was working with Brickman, who is Ryan McNaught. He's the only certified Lego professional in the Southern Hemisphere. I believe his show, Lego Masters, has aired in the UK, but if not, have a look for it. But it's huge in Australia, and he is huge. And so anytime I spoke to someone and said, oh, I'm meeting with Ryan, or I'm working with Ryan or Brickman, my kudos just went through the roof. So that was great. But also, he was fabulous, and his whole team of Lego people are amazing, and they they have almost a better job than I do because I get to play with Lego all day. But I got to go down to Melbourne where their workshops are and brief them about the wrecks and the models and what we wanted the models to show, because they're very creative, imaginative people. And so I didn't want to stymie them, but there were some things we needed to make sure that were shown so that we could allude to them in the labels or that were important feature of the wreck. So there were some, creating briefing documents. We want this vessel and we definitely want to show this. So, for example, on the Shannon, it's actually a Chinese vessel that was on its way to Japan that wrecked off Korea. So it did allow us to tick a lot of different Asian countries in our content. But what was amazing when they discovered the Shannon was, and they looked at the structure, is that she was built with internal bulkheads much earlier than any European vessels adopted that building technique. So we wanted to make sure that the Lego model of the Shannon, you could see those bulkheads. One of the big challenges of developing Brickwrecks was that we did it during COVID. So it was actually a lot of the development was done in 2020, 2021, and trying to be creative and have design meetings and technical meetings over Zoom or Teams, as you'll know, isn't the easiest. And yeah, that was probably one of the toughest elements. And it led to some disappointments. For example, Melbourne was locked down when the exhibition actually opened in Fremantle. And so Ryan, he didn't actually see it until it came to Sydney. Yeah, the international global pandemic did create some challenges for us, but persevered. And I was able to get to WA for the opening, which was great, although they locked down again, started as I was leaving. So only just made it back out again. It was a strange time. So the exhibition opened in Fremantle, Western Australia. It then toured around West Australia museums, other campuses. They've got smaller museums in various towns in WA. Then it came over to Sydney, and then it travelled to Sweden. Went a huge international journey to Stockholm, to the Vasa Museum. The Vasa is one of the wrecks featured in the exhibition, and they were very excited to include it. So it was great. And it was actually nice for me to think that, international famous shipwreck museum was impressed enough with the content of this little exhibition from Australia to ship it halfway across the world. So that was good. And I got to go to Sweden and see it there, and see that is a fantastic museum. If you ever get to go to Stockholm, go and see the Vasa Museum and their new shipwreck. They've got a whole museum about shipwrecks too, which is fabulous. So yeah, I'll have to go back there and spend longer. Yes, got to open the exhibition. I didn't have to do my speech in Swedish, luckily. Most of them speak fabulous English, so that was great. So that meant that all my Lego puns were understood and went across well. It's great that it's getting to travel. It's great that it's going to the UK so that there's more opportunity for my family and friends from when I grew up to see it. That's great. I think, when you do an exhibition, there's always things, could have done that better, or if only we'd had a bit more money or whatever. But I think Brickwrecks it's pretty good. It's interesting because there's various stations in it where people can stop and play with Lego and build things. It means people tend to stay in the exhibition longer than they might otherwise do in a more traditional museum exhibition. The dwell time, as we say, is longer. But what that meant is that I could actually put in more text than I possibly would do normally, because I know people don't read all the labels in an exhibition and they get tired and fatigued. So I usually try to keep text to a minimum. But the good thing about Brickwrecks is because there were these opportunities where the kids would stop and be engaged for quite a time, I felt that I could put in more information than I perhaps would have done. Not that people have to read it, but it means that if the kids are engaged, then the adults might actually have time to read it if they're interested, rather than being dragged away and on to the next thing. So that's something that's sort of stands out a bit in this exhibition. But it's been going really well. We're actually considering whether we need to do Brickwrecks version 2, because we're getting so much interest in this one and there's only so many places it can go. It'll be heading over to North America after it finishes in the UK. So it's going to continue on its global tour, and hopefully I'll get to visit it as it travels the world.
Paul Barnard will tell us more about the Brickwrecks exhibition later. To find out more about visiting the Dockyard, go to the website, which is easily accessible by typing Historic Dockyard Chatham in your browser, or if you want the website address, it is thedockyard.co.uk. That is thedockyard.co.uk. You will be able to buy tickets online, and the great thing is the cost of a ticket gives you access to the Dockyard for a year. Please note the Dockyard closes to the public mid-November, apart from special, separately ticketed events. Brickwrecks, Sunken Ships in Lego Brick is making its UK debut at the Dockyard and is located in No. 1 Smithery. The exhibition is open daily to the 31st of August and is included in the annual ticket price. In this part, Paul explains the Brickwrecks exhibition from the Dockyard perspective.
So it's an absolute pleasure to be here today to talk about Brickwrecks, Sunken Ships and Lego Bricks. And it's a really, really interesting story about how we came across the exhibition itself. So the exhibition was created in Australia, a partnership between two major Australian museums. And we came across the exhibition almost completely by chance. So if you ever wanted to see the power of social media, I spotted it on social media, and a conversation really started from there. And we saw some of these amazing images of this exhibition that had travelled all the way from Australia over to the Vasa Museum in Stockholm. And we saw some amazing images of the launch and just looked at some of the content, whether it be the iconic models of ships like the Titanic, but right through to those that have the Chatham connections. And you just look at it and go, yeah, we've got to have that. That just makes perfect sense for us. So started what was an emerging partnership between us and those major Australian partners. And here we are today with Brickwrecks in No. 1 Smithery. It's been an absolute pleasure to work on the exhibition and bring it over to our shores for UK audiences. And I think the thing that probably struck me the most when getting the exhibition here was, on one hand, the scale of these incredible models that have been built. So 11 models, over 170,000 Lego bricks. Incredible feat of Lego engineering, for want of a better phrase, to bring the stories of these ships to life. But not only is it an amazing exhibition that shows just what you can do with Lego, but actually using it as a medium to tell the stories of 8 really iconic shipwrecks from around the world, dating back from the Bronze Age right through to more modern shipwrecks like the Rena, which we tell the story of in the exhibition itself, really brings those stories to a wide range of audiences. So when you think of Lego, you think of something that is aimed primarily at a family and child audience, and it's great. It's a really, really interactive exhibition that really engages young minds in the stories of those shipwrecks, into shipbuilding technology and what we can learn from shipwrecks. So their impact on the environment, their impact on the economy, their impact on human lives, ultimately. But also there's some really, really great content in there for adult audiences as well. Learning about the shipwrecks themselves, the stories, how they came across their tragic fates in all cases. Yeah, so learning about how we tell those tragic stories to adult audiences in quite detailed ways. The other side of this, and I have to confess to being one of these myself actually, Lego as a brand and as an intellectual property just has an appeal that isn't just about children anymore. It is about adult audiences as well. I include myself as one of those. So when I say this has been a real passion project to work on, that's also because I'm also a huge fan of Lego myself. As you'll learn in the exhibition, we call ourselves AFOLs, so adult fans of Lego. So it's been truly great to work on it. Going back to why did we want this exhibition? So there are some real key links with ships that have strong links with Chatham. And so why do it here? Well, there are 2 of the models and actually in total 3 ships in this that have key links to Chatham. So the 2 that I'll really focus on are HMS Terror and HMS Erebus. So within this exhibition, we have a fantastic model that sets out what ended up being Franklin's last expedition to find the Northwest Passage through the Arctic. And these 2 ships actually ended up getting stranded in ice floes. Their crews abandoned the ships that ultimately weren't going anywhere, went off to try and see if they could save themselves, ultimately ended up losing their lives somewhere off around what is now the coast of Canada. The Lego model itself is absolutely incredible. It sets out the huge ice floe, these tiny little ships and people, and just sets out really that bleakness that those crews must have faced whilst undertaking that expedition. The ships themselves were actually refitted and set out on their purpose for this expedition here at Chatham, so they were strengthened, they were made fit for that expedition that unfortunately didn't see them return, as we know now. But to have those Chatham ships that have only recently, as shipwrecks, been discovered in the last 20 years or so, immortalised in this exhibition, considered somewhere on the other side of the world, that we've now been able to bring here to Chatham, has been a real achievement to this place. The exhibition itself has had a tremendous response. So it's been open now for a little while, and it's had a great impact on our visitor numbers. We've seen anywhere between 30 to 50% uplift in our visitors during the process of having this exhibition, and that's great. So the reason we put these amazing temporary exhibitions on is to drive new audiences. So we know, and we're really proud, that the Historic Dockyard is a fantastic place. It has 3 amazing warships, it has an abundance of galleries, working ropery. It's a fantastic day out. But we also know that the Dockyard can be a hard sell. What is a Dockyard? What are you coming to see? And we use temporary exhibitions like Brickwrecks to act really as that catalyst. So why visit? Why visit now? And this exhibition has really had that. So it's all included within the annual ticket that we have here at the Historic Dockyard. So you buy a ticket, it's valid for a year, and all of the temporary exhibitions and the entire Dockyard site are covered within that ticket price. And it gives that great reason for why visit now. If you've been considering coming to the Dockyard, well, this is a great time to actually do that. The exhibition is going to be with us until the 31st of August. So we have a nice long run to let people have the opportunity to come and see this. But then don't just come for Brickwrecks. Actually, come and visit our Cold War submarine, our Second World War destroyer, Victorian sloop, our amazing galleries, the working ropery where you can see rope being made that actually would have rigged some of these ships that you see in this amazing exhibition. The actual rope would have been made in that building itself. It's been a fantastic exhibition to work on. We're really proud to have it, and we're really proud to show it to our visitors that are flocking to come and see it all the time at the moment.
We are now on 11 podcast platforms, including Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. You can visit any of the 11 podcast platform websites or download their free apps from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. If you have enjoyed our podcast, please hit the subscribe button and you will be sent a notification whenever a new episode is added. To contact us about the podcasts, please email us at podcast@chdt.org.uk. That's podcast@chdt.org.uk. So until the next time, this is John saying goodbye and take care.